we have Sam Tarakajian here. Super excited. It's always a blessing to be able to talk to Sam. Uh, I do get to work alongside him, but at the same time, we don't get to chat a lot. But he did some wondrous work with Max 9. I'm sure you've all actually, perhaps directly or inadvertently, been experiencing it. But the Max 9 documentation received perhaps one of the biggest overhauls it's had in, I don't know, decades, right, Sam?
Oh yeah.
It's vast. It's asynchronous now of the application, so we can update and improve and add to the documentation without needing to release a new copy of Max. There's tons of advantages, but there's also a lot of new content in there. I think some of you have definitely, if you've been on the streams here, you've been experiencing docs.cycling74.com, which is probably one of the main areas to get into it, but there's also ways from Max, the application itself. So I thought, one superpower of Max is being able to get yourself unstuck when you get stuck. You'll inevitably get stuck, and being able to find solutions for it on your own without being able to phone it into a buddy is tricky. But yeah, I thought we'd have a look at it. So Sam, where should we start here? What's some of your favorite documentation things?
What a what a great question. Thanks, Tom. It's good to see you too. I like I don't know that it's saying that it's a blessing is puts the pressure a little bit high, but I'll do my
Nah.
best. I'll do my best to live up to your ecclesiastical standards. So yeah, I was thinking like maybe it would be fun just to talk a little bit about um I don't know. I guess we could start just by talking a little bit, since this is the office hours, and so we get to peel back the curtain a little bit. It might be fun just to talk a little bit about why it was suddenly time to make this big change to docs, what we were trying to do with them, if people are interested. So it's funny. Like I think that for Max is kind of, I think, known for having really good documentation, at least as far. I think people often say of Max, the documentation is really good. And I think when they say that, they might mean a few different things, but I think the thing that people most often mean is they mean that the help files are good. And I agree, the help files are great. It's so great that for literally any object, you can open up an editable patch, grab stuff out of it. The best documentation is always going to be something working, actually doing its thing,
Right,
more
right.
than writing about it. So I think that's what people usually mean. However, there are limitations to what you can say in a help file. And I think if you went and you looked at the existing documentation, there was some stuff that we wanted. You've been in there, I've been in there. There's some stuff that we wanted to fix.
Yeah,
And so
bring it.
that's what we tried to bite off for Max 9.
Yeah, yeah. It really was about ready to bring it into the, third decade of the 21st century.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and it had fallen a little behind with just the myriad of incredible stuff we added to Max 8. So it was good timing, I think. I really appreciate how much more accessible it is. I'm not sure, but like for you, but like for me, sometimes working within the documentation, within the application itself, I found a little, like I kind of wanted to have it off separate of the application, and so I'm kind of surprised with myself, my personal feeling for being able to have it in a browser or have it, separate of the application is being pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you something that kind of blew my mind the other day. I'll show you a little tiny screen cap here, but I was wait, okay, I'm gonna share my screen. Oh God, I hope this works. I'm gonna
Oh,
try
if
to
you're
share my
sharing
screen.
sound, remember to toggle on.
I'm not, but
Okay.
I shared in Zoom, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. let's hope this works. I'm just going to share everything and hopefully not dox myself or something horrible. But I was asking ChatGPT a question um, about something to do with JavaScript and getting theme colors or something. And the answer that it came up with, it cited our own documentation back at me and specifically sourced the page from the new documentation. So one other kind of nice thing about having it online in this very regularized, very robot readable format, for better or for worse, it's good primary source documentation that both human and robot actors can pick up and make use of. So that's something that's pretty cool about the new documentation. One thing
That's pretty huge.
I think
That's
so
cool.
too. One thing that I want to just show really quickly, you can see what I was gonna watch. One thing I wanted to just show quickly is a bit of a difference. So one thing that when we wanted to rewrite this documentation, it wasn't just a question of kind of updating things. I mean, obviously, if you go through, for example, the Jitter documentation, some of the things about matrices and videos, it hasn't been rewritten since sometime in the early 2000s. There's a paragraph that says, we for our recommended resolution to work with video, Max is pretty powerful. You can go as high as 400 pixels by 300 pixels if you really want to push it. You have a top of the line machine. So I mean, obviously, there's like some stuff that needs to be just updated, but we also got the chance to rework the documentation, making it more accessible in a couple different ways. And I'll just show you an example of that. So
I
say
don't
you
know.
were
I
in
kind of
Max.
secretly love that, like, cause
Yeah, there's a charm to that for sure.
yeah, I remember having to render videos at 640 by 480, like optimized photo JPEG codec to make it run at, I don't know, 20 frames per second in
Yeah.
Jitter.
Yeah, there's definitely some charm, I guess, to working within constraints, low resolution being one of them. Um, so I'll show you what I mean. Say for example, you were working with the Metro object, and you remembered that Metro is one of those objects that can either just take, plain old time, or you can do something like Metro 4n to bind these values relative to the current transport, to the current tempo. So maybe you forgot the syntax for this thing and you wanted to remember how to do it. Well, if you went to the old documentation, you would first be asked to remember whether the thing you wanted to find out was a topic, a tutorial, or a guide. So maybe you
Mm.
start with the topic and you look for something to do with timing. Okay, timing and sequencing events. Okay, well, this links to a bunch of objects and links to a couple tutorials and nothing else. So maybe this isn't it. So you go back, you look for guides, and the guides are not organized in any way. It's just a super long list of guides. Maybe you make it as far down as, I don't know, I'm looking for something, anything here to do with timing, time value syntax. Okay, here we are. So if you compare this to the new documentation, you just
Mm.
go into this user guide. So two things right off the bat. One, obviously, we just have these guides. The whole thing of topics, guides, and vignettes, or whatever it was called, it's kind of gone away. We just have one thing.
Mm.
Everything is organized into some actual categories. And now, the categories, in addition to there being this categorization, there's just many, many, many fewer pages. There's probably like 10% as many pages as there once were. And of the pages that exist, they are a lot more streamlined. So for example, here's the page on time value syntax that really cuts down on a lot of the sort of explaining the background and just gets to the sort of thing you actually are interested in. So what values can you actually take on? What's the relationship between note values and ticks? If you compare this to, say, for example, what you would get if you searched for time value syntax in the old documentation, you would eventually get to the page you wanted, but you could get to this page, which also seems like it would be helpful, specifying time values. But this is actually just a list of three other pages. And by the way, even though this looks like a guide or a topic rather, it's actually a vignette. So
Oh,
all this just to
wow.
say that like there's a lot of work that went into not just rewriting, but reorganizing, consolidating, trying to make the docs a bit better to use.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I remember doing a lot of those vignettes.
Well, this is the other thing that might be fun to know is that all the documentation now is written in a simple text format called Markdown, which if you've written in Markdown before, you know is machine readable, but also very human writable. It kind of looks like what it is. All the old documentation was in XML, and editing XML by hand, which is how you had to write the old documentation, was clunky. When people like our good friend Tom went to rewrite it, there was a lot of overhead and a lot of frustration involved with getting that done.
Yeah, yeah. I remember a lot of time put into docs. Yeah, and as someone who's just recently been working with the new system, I can say it's really incredible and quite easy to work with. Um, yeah, this is night and day when you put it like this, Sam. And I could see how someone wanting to find out about Metro could easily be defeated and perhaps, yeah, move on to something else.
And we don't want people to be defeated. We want
Right.
them to be, they should do the defeating, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow. I actually had very rapidly put guides, vignettes, and topics behind me, and I forgot what
Yeah.
a what a vast landscape that
Yeah.
was.
Right.
um,
Um,
yeah, this is great. And just for people at home, the docs that you showed out of the Patcher window are also that's feeding in from online, right?
Yeah, well, sorry. So it's maybe worth mentioning that the guide that you see in Max when you use the documentation is a snapshot of a certain point in time from whatever's on the website.
Yep.
So what you see on the website, it's not necessarily more up to date. It can be more up to date. Um, but the important thing is that the two are decoupled. We can make changes to the documentation very quickly. We don't have to wait for a new version of Max to get those out. So there may be something slightly out of date in the application, but in general, we try to keep them at parity with each other.
Mm. Mm.
So I just want to show a couple other things, new things in the docs that
Please
might be
do. Please
cool to
do.
see. One thing that you might have missed is, say you were in Max and there was some icon in the toolbars here that you weren't familiar with. Maybe you've never seen this thing down here before, where it says assign key map. You can actually hover over this and then hover over where it says assign key map, click on this, and get a bunch of different topics in the documentation. And if you click on this, it takes you to this specific part of the documentation related to that thing. So one more way to get from the interface in Max to a piece of the documentation.
Right.
There's a few things in the new documentation that were kind of written from scratch. A lot of stuff is consolidated, expanded on, reworked, whatever it might be. There is some brand new stuff. So one thing that's brand new that I think is pretty cool, or I hope is pretty cool, is in the parameter mode page. This goes into a bit more detail about what some of these different parameter modes do. And in particular, there's a kind of more in-depth discussion about what the different modulation modes do. I don't know if you ever tried to work out from the older documentation what these modes did, but the language made it a bit unclear. And we have these really cool animations in the new documentation that Florian worked really hard to support that demonstrate kind of what these different values do. You can see these are actually SVG animations. So unlike, an animated GIF or something, they have nice high resolution. And maybe the coolest part, if I go into the preferences and we look for the theme and we change it to a light theme, oh my God, the SVGs actually change color to reflect the new theme.
Super
So
cool.
anyone out there who enjoys burning their retinas on the regular, you can also have readable SVGs. There's
Nice.
some there's some other pages that are written from scratch that are kind of useful. There's this conversion cheat sheet page that has a ton of conversions. So converting from audio to matrices to messages to dictionaries to buffers, et cetera, et cetera. And any one of these, you can click on one of these patches to copy the patch, and then paste that thing into your into a new patch, or make a new patch from it. So maybe a useful resource both for people who are looking for something particular, and also maybe for people who are new to Max, or need a reminder of kind of the basics of working in a particular with a particular set of media in Max.
Yeah, I love that. It's reminiscent of the help patches, but now it's in the docs. Like, all code can be reused, leveraged. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
exactly. Exactly.
Tell me, the clue window, which I think you have hidden right now in the patcher, also links to documentation, right? I
The
think
the
the
clue bar.
clue
Yeah.
bar, yeah.
The clue bar, I think it links to, yeah, I don't know how you get to, if there's a way to make it, because the clue, it's displaying the
Yeah.
object. You can click on the object name down there and it will take you, oh, look at that. I guess you could go to, so you go to object reference this way and related objects this way. I
Right.
wonder if, I don't know
It's
actually off the
more
top of
like
my
the
head if any,
extension of the. It's more like the question mark in the help file, right? Kind of. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I wonder if there's any. I was going to say, I wonder if there's any objects that actually link to a topic in the documentation. I don't think there are, but I guess in principle there could be here, which could be nice.
Yeah, that's something that could be handy. Nice, Sam. This is
So,
incredible.
I mean, I can just keep going. You tell me to stop and I'll
Please
stop.
do, folks. We want
Um,
to hear about it, right? Knowledge is
one,
power.
one other thing that's kind of nice, one thing that's different, I guess, is the JavaScript API documentation. So we have this split between the user guide documentation that we were just looking at and this API documentation. So you may remember from the earlier versions of the documentation that all of the JavaScript functions, the API functions that you could call in JavaScript, they were documented just like any other part of Max in a big vignette or something like that, that you would read in the same style, and the functions were there in code, but they weren't. It was at the end of the day just another text document basically. In for Max 9, the JavaScript API docs now, so in the same way that the user guide documents are based on Markdown, these are also based on a different kind of like primary source. In this case, these are coming from TypeScript definitions. So we do have TypeScript definitions for all of our JavaScript um, functions, all the functions in the JavaScript API, and we can use those to generate these documents. So why is that good? Well, among other things, it means that this documentation it's actually, rather than being like a long text document, if you wanted to look at a specific part of it, for example, the mgraphics documentation, now these functions are documented here with their types. So with the types that they take both in and out. And for some types, this is particularly useful. Like I think a good example is set. I know the set line cap function, I believe. Yeah, it will actually show you not just that this function takes a string, but which strings it takes specifically. And if you happen to be in Max and you're in the preferences and you turn on the experimental Monaco editor, which mine is already on, then when you make let's make a JS UI object, and you open up, say, let's not do that. Let's do a V8 UI rather. And you open up its text. I don't know why this isn't loading. I want it to load and it's not. That's kind of annoying. Let's try JS UI. If I double click on this, well, this is why the Monaco text editor is experimental. Maybe if I make a new and I do V8 UI and then double click on this. No, why would it work in the middle of a demo where we need it to work? Okay, I'll
Yeah.
just restart Max.
Yeah.
Um, But what I will show you is that you can use the TypeScript definitions for text autocomplete. The definitions aren't like broadly available yet, but the fact that they've all been moved over to TypeScript definitions makes it much easier for us to. Yeah, there we go. So you can see hopefully that I don't know why. Oh, I see. It truly is experimental. Well, hopefully this isn't too small, this text. I don't think there's any way I can make it bigger. Um, you can actually see that here the text editor thinks that this function is being called incorrectly. That's a bug on my end in the documentation that I need to get to. But if I went in here and started typing mgraphics dot, and then now the text autocomplete is not only giving me all the functions, but also their types. So I could do set line cap and then see the possible values that I could put in, but round and square. And if you tried something else like, I don't know, oval, you would see that that's not allowed, and you even get this, VS Code looking Monaco popover that says, it's not one of the allowed types. So the fact that all the documentation has been moved to TypeScript and TypeScript definitions out of this XML means that there's more stuff we can do with it. And I'm sure in time and before too long, this will be something that is, part of another part of making the experience of using JavaScript in Macs similar to what V8 and Codebox everywhere have already done, just make JavaScript a lot easier to use in Macs.
Very cool.
And maybe now would be a good time to talk, and the same thing goes for the Node for Max API and the live object model. This stuff, of course, is refers to the same the JavaScript API for the JavaScript API for the live API, but all this stuff has the same nice format as it did for the other JavaScript APIs, to where everything is kind of broken out into functions and types. You can click around to go from one thing to another. So maybe now would be a good time to talk about the last kind of way that the documentation is broken out into these tutorials. We've kind of moved over to putting tutorials and examples all into sort of one big thing. And having done that, this bringing the tutorials out of the main application and putting them online like this does a couple of things for us. The one thing that it lets us do is add tutorials, update tutorials, edit them anytime we want without needing to push a new version of the application. It means that these can all live online, and if there's multimedia that shows, like a good example would be to go into one of maybe these great tutorials that Matteo has made, covering, I think the last one in particular, no, this one in particular has a lot of these kind of SVG animations, and then some other, like really a bunch of videos, animations, and math, other stuff that really shows what's happening. So we can make tutorials that are a lot richer and more featureful than we can just the stuff that's in the application. And then finally, because the tutorials are, again, all written in Markdown now and not in XML, we aren't there yet, but it opens the door to user-submitted tutorials and also localization, so translations and localization of existing tutorials. The one downside, obviously, the tutorials aren't in the application anymore, but you can still download them. You could still print them to PDF if you really wanted to. And we think that the benefits of being able to have this kind of one place where all the examples and tutorials can be found sort of outweighs the annoyances, I guess, to not having them be in the application. Although if it ends up being too much of a problem, it is something that we can look at. So one thing I am curious of rather, and this would be a good place to open it up, I guess, would just be to find out. And we don't have to do this live, but I am curious in general to know what people want to see tutorialized. I think it's kind of on the one hand, when we write tutorials, no one knows Max better than we do, especially at a low level, at a code level. we'll always be able to write tutorials that are closer to the truth, probably, with respect to how the application works. But at the same time, people can get, there's so many good resources online for learning about Macs that, maybe we don't need to write the tutorials. But then again, maybe there's some stuff that only we are going to talk about. For example, going in depth into working with sensors or Raspberry Pi or particular niche pieces of hardware or whatever it might be. Um, Another question is with respect to going back and redoing the original tutorials. I know people love the original tutorials and depend on them. We can leave them available as legacy tutorials. We could update them. We could start from scratch and create a new path into Max. I'm not necessarily trying to crowdsource the answer to these questions here, but more just like gauging excitement and interest in any particular topic area or even a particular pathway into Max. Um, so yeah, that's kind of, and I'm also happy to go into any particular piece of tutorials or something like that. One thing that I might just point out because I think it's kind of fun that people may not know about, although people who are in this chat are pretty savvy about this kind of thing, so they may already know. We do have some technology in place to link from, say, uh, to link from the browser into Macs. So, for example, you can actually use a URL that looks like C74Max colon slash patcher slash simple fm tilde dot maxpat, for example, and my Firefox will ask me if I want to open it, and then it can trigger Max to open this. Currently, this doesn't download and run the patch. There's obviously some security things involved with that we want to think through, seeing as Max has a lot of permissions, and this would let people download and run a program that could have arbitrary permissions. I mean, granted, it would only target Max users, but something for us to think about. So currently, this will only open patches that are already on your machine, but that technology is there.
Wow.
So it's something we've thought about with respect to how to make the kind of path from online tutorials into the application a little bit easier. But we haven't gotten any further than just making they're called deep links, making these deep links work. Um, that's kind of what I had in store wanted to talk about with respect to documentation.
Super
Um,
cool.
yeah, I'm happy to if you have any. Well, yeah, I mean, there
You
you go.
touched on some of these new tutorials by Matteo. I think they're worth highlighting how brilliant these jitter tutorials are, especially polish your pixels, which is just something every jitter user has reckoned with over the years. It was like how to get, the best, render quality, capture. Um, it's such a great article series.
I think Mateo does a really good job of both giving you demystifying, I guess,
Mm.
the difference between. I think it's easy to open up. I think experienced Max users are very aware of this kind of thing. That if you open up Max or what do I want to say? But yeah, so for example, if you open up Max and put a couple of grid shapes into a scene, and then you open up another application, Maya, Blender, Unreal, whatever, and put some shapes into a scene, they're going to look very different. A naive way of looking at this would be to say, oh, this application looks better than this application. I think most people here probably know that it has a lot more to do with how these different environments are configured. Ultimately, they're addressing the same hardware and using a lot of the same techniques to make drawings look more or less realistic or have, one style or another. And Mateo does a really good job of kind of breaking down what's going on under the hood in a lot of situations to enhance realism, increase the quality of the colors that come out of an image, making images just look better in a lot of ways. So I think even if you're not a Max user and you don't use Jitter, it's still a cool series to read. You'll learn a lot about techniques that are used throughout, around the world to do computer graphics.
Yeah. Super impressive. I thoroughly enjoyed reading that. What are some of the other tutorials that got some love and polish in this Max 9 reboot of the docs, Sam?
Well, all we've the only ones that we've got the chance to work on are to make some new tutorials for the jitter geometry.
Right.
Um, and I know I've talked about these before, but these, talk about some of the half-edge structure, what you can do with the jitter geometries, the way you can break these objects down, use the structure to do different things. So those are the two. And there's plenty of grist for the mill, so to speak. There's lots of things that we could come back in and address. And
Mm.
that's, one of the nice things about having the space be the way it is. We can add to it over time, and it can become a really robust and active space for kind of the set of possibilities of different things that you can do with Max.
All right, folks. We've got Sam here. What are your questions?
I have some other. If we have extra time, I have some dessert now that we've eaten our vegetables. But I'm also happy to answer questions about the
Let's see here
documentation.
if there's any questions. Carp was saying, let's talk about mirror docs. I'm not sure there's any mirror docs in there.
No, there's not, but that's a great idea.
So let's put that on the list. Hi Harmonics says, I love the improvements, very big gain in usability, great work. The one area that still seems thin is the Gen object docs. My experience is that if you know Gen already, you have a good DSP background, then the Gen object doc is a good reference, but the help file doesn't have examples, and in general the descriptions are short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't say anything about the Gen object reference. I know there's technically reasons why it's not as simple as updating the max object reference, but when it comes to writing Gen tutorials, going into detail about how Gen works, we can do that kind of stuff. The object reference, I know there's some other stuff going on there, but yeah, I too have felt the same pain before.
Yeah, I would agree too. I think that's something that we can look at getting some love to in the next few months, years. What's to say? What kind of stuff? I'm not sure what you mean, Carp. Looking forward to deep linking integration. To clarify, did the Max tutorials help sets move out of the app package and just move online? Yes, Alex
Yeah.
Masker.
Yeah, that's right.
There's a
That's
few there's a few classic abstractions that are in the installer still that we couldn't take out or would break people's patches, like simple FM, for example. But largely, yes.
Yeah. There's quite a lot of built-in examples, built-in content that we did also look at moving out of the application. That stuff's all still in there. It's only the tutorials that have come out for now. And I think, like Tom mentions, part of the reason for that is because the tutorials, one thing we thought about a lot with the documentation is what's the kind of stuff that people are going to reach for every day. Like that time value syntax document, for example, you could open that once a week if you were really, refreshing your memory often about how that stuff worked. The tutorial about what an object is, you're probably not opening that often. And this was part of our reasoning behind putting something online versus keeping it in the application.
Yeah, that's a really good way to frame it. I hadn't thought of that. Like what things are you going back to in the docs versus what is something that you learn once and don't need to, review
Exactly.
again. Good thinking. High harmonics is a Gen tutorials would be great. Generating sound on time might be a good source. That's correct. Maybe we can coax those guys after they finish Gen Book 2 to write some tutorials. Maybe Gen Book 2 could be... Yeah, I'm just thinking now. Now we have the way we have the docs. Wouldn't be hard to translate some of it to tutorials. And Graham has a wealth of knowledge that could definitely be some Mateo like articles.
I mean, I think there's a lot of, I feel like personally, I think an area that would be really cool would be a polish your pixels, but I don't know, scrub your sounds or something. Basically the equivalent, but
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about things like mastering, layering, things to kind of make elevate your sound quality
Right,
that are
right.
sort of, you know, don't really have anything to do with genre and have much more to do with just knowing about how to arrange sound.
Yeah, like gain staging and stuff.
All this stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That would be
Compression.
pretty good, I think, for the MSP side of Max.
Mm.
Uh, Carp is asking, how did you tackle unit types when rewriting? On some old docs, it was tough to find sometimes SAMPs versus milliseconds.
The unit types. Oh, so for a given object, whether
Yeah,
that object is going to have one type or another. I mean, it's kind of not, it's kind of more of something for the object reference than the overall user guide, which I probably should have said that the goal with the user guide is to explain how Max works, not to go so much into individual objects, except when those objects are kind of foundational to Max, like matrix tilde, FFT tilde, set, or sorry, matrix, sorry, jit.matrix, FFT tilde, etc. Um, so for things like that, I think it's more object specific, and the help file or the reference page for an individual object is still the place to go.
very cool. Julian says he's still up to write and translate stuff to French. Right on.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Let's get some French docs in there. So the ref pages are unchanged, Carp has asked.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Can you share some more about how the search algorithm works?
Not really.
Not really.
I don't really know anything about how it works except to say that the pages are indexed. And we can search here. We can just look time, value, syntax, and see kind of what comes up. But as far as how it's not an original algorithm, and I don't know what's being used under the hood to implement it. But unless there's a question about whether, for example, there's like an extended syntax, there's no way to do something like, I don't know, do topic colon audio and then search. There's no syntax like that. Although I guess there are some advanced search options. Yeah, but it's minimal, I guess, compared to what you have, for example, in the file browser. But as far as like, the theory behind the search algorithm, I really don't know. It's not something we invented.
Mm. Remind me, what is the system we use for hosting this? Is it Sam?
For hosting the documentation.
Yeah.
Um,
what is the application called? It's
I
the
don't
same
know.
one we use for Rainbow, right?
Oh, is it?
I think so.
I don't, number one, I don't know that that's true.
Oh,
And
okay.
also, I don't know. I don't know what it is, and I don't know if it's the same one or not.
All right. No problem.
Sorry.
No. Carpet said, you mean the Mac search isn't secretly a terminal running off a code box?
No comment.
No comment. iFeature has a question. I got a question. Is it normal that the JIT P window is transparent and not functional when the title bar is off? On Mac, it works fine. Oh, so this is a Windows only issue? Doesn't sound normal. I think we aim for parity between Mac functionality and Windows, and so actually iFeature, I would drop support an email with that one, with a patch, please. Oh,
Yes,
okay.
it sounds like a bug.
Support it, yeah, it does not sound right. Support is your best avenue. We love to hear about what's happening for you in Max and if you're striking some problems or the likes, but really support, we have several folks in there that are ready to take an email. The way it works is they get an email, they check if it's a bug, they log a ticket if it is a bug, and they back and forth with you on a solution, it's definitely the best avenue. But any other questions, folks? Well, we've got Sam here on the line. Yeah, honestly, I'm not sure I've ever been more excited about documentation than I am with Max 9. It really changes things a lot, especially when combined with, other new features like illustration mode and the pop-ups so that you can access things easier.
Documentation is documentation is fun. What do you do when you buy a food processor, you buy a freaking air fryer,
an air fryer,
what's the first thing
generator?
What's the first thing you do? Do you plug it in and just try to make it work and see what it does? No, you sit down and you read the manual beginning to end, just like all of us does. All of us, just like we all. Point is, documentation's fun.
Yeah.
It's the best part.
It's always amazing.
When I go to a restaurant, I don't even order food. I just read the menu and then I silently leave the restaurant.
You're just a serial.
And I pay full price. I pay what I would have paid, and I just leave.
Sam is renowned for visiting restaurants in New York City and never taking a bite. Just reading the menu, silently judging their menu on its cohesion, and then leaving. Slapping
down whatever I feel is appropriate given the quality of the menu, and then making my way out. And you should do the same. Anybody who reads the documentation, you should Venmo me, and then no, that's a joke.
I recently bought a generator, and it came with some pretty good documentation. I guess when it's really good, you don't even think about it. You're just like, oh, this generator is a tri-fuel generator. It takes gasoline, gas, propane, and natural gas. But so, hooking it up, you're like, I don't want to blow myself up. But I just read it, and it just made sense, and I had it running in 10 minutes out of the box. And now I'm thinking, that was some pretty good documentation.
I thought you were going to say, and now I'm thinking, I could make one of these. I don't need to buy my tri-fuel generators.
Yeah, new career, building tri-fuel generators. It could actually be lucrative business, I think, given the modern era we're in.
I think you're right.
Did you add any tutorials based on celeb patches?
No, it's so cool.
How to LP5. That's a cool idea, actually.
I do have a handful of patches that I think it'd be cool just to break down whether, we lean too heavily on the fact that they're like, VIP patches or whatever.
Right.
They just are interesting to kind of go into how they work, regardless.
Yeah, I think both of us have done it, and it's really a great way to learn Max once you get more past the beginner phase, is to take someone else's patches that has more experience than you and just break it apart. It's a great way to learn. But yeah, I think we could coax some patches out of folks. I know that some, especially if we were like, we're not going to tell you whose patch it is, I think they would be willing to share.
Yeah, we could do if you're looking for content for your you could have people send in patches. You could do like a rate my room, but it's like rate my patch.
Yeah.
Like people send in their patches, and then you, Tom, could rate them according to your rigorous standards.
Yeah. Yeah. I could do that. Evan is like, buy the patches off Carl Stone. Please, we need his sound. Carl's been a long time Max user, well into the decades, and I know he sent patches to support. We've definitely had a peek at Carl's patches before, man. You organizing a rave with that generator? Of course. Naturally, the moment I got a generator, and I was like, you know what? Come summertime, Might be time for some Highland Max MSP noise shirts
Now we're talking.
in the
Are you going to
forest.
build your own speakers?
Oh, that's the way, right? Yeah, definitely. Floating Points. I don't know if you follow him on Instagram, Sam. He's also a Max user, but Floating Points built his own PA system is pretty impressive. Wow.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you look up Floating Points, and he's in the UK. When he's obviously outside of the UK, he doesn't take his. He's been playing shows around the UK with his own PA, taking his own purpose-built PA. There's something kind of pretty cool about that. Like, Zach says they appreciate the new organization, but any inkling to bring back Pagasaurus Rex for the live object model page, aka the page with absolutely everything on it.
I think that page is. Oh, I think I know what we're talking about.
I've learned so much just from scrolling and finding things there serendipitously.
Okay, yeah, I see. There's like a hierarchy now. This isn't all one giant page. It's broken down into individual. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. We hadn't planned on it, but if enough people really want it to be organized that way, maybe we could dump all this content onto the homepage for the live object model.
It could be just an alternative page, right? Like
Exactly.
where it's just stretched
Exactly.
out. Let's see, what else we got? Problems eyes. The online version is great for me. I can finally enlarge the tutorials so much that I can read everything. Great. Yeah, readability is something. Having dark mode is appreciated too. As someone who doesn't need to be blinded. What else have we got here? Yo, Rob is in there. No way. One small request. Google search results bring things up like... Sam, do you see this one from Alex Meska? Version of Max is available. Click here to access the latest version of the documentation, but it links to docs root.
So here, for example, click this. It links here. Oh, and you want it to link here or something? Is that the?
Yeah.
This is basically the idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice. Expand all option. For the LOM. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what it could be. Expand.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it would be nice as kind of a cheat sheet. I mean, overall, like a live object model cheat sheet could also be kind of nice. It'd be for live objects, not for using the JavaScript API, but could still be useful.
Yeah, I can see that being helpful. All right, folks, we're almost at the top of the hour. We might cut this off here shortly. Get your last second questions in, and then we're going to head off into the afternoon. What are you all working on? What do you want to know? Favorite object? Sam, what's your favorite object?
I think I like my favorite object is known. It's 2D Wave. 2D Wave is a great object.
Yeah. 2D Wave too. It's something good about it. It's a little bit nasty. You can make it sound pretty depending on what you load in it. It's very versatile.
Love 2D Wave. Great one.
I have to agree. It's not my favorite though. Mine is multi-slider. I don't know. I just love a bit of multi-slider. It's so versatile. The fact a lot of people don't know, or they just never bother. They always use it left to right, but you can flip it to run top to bottom, so you can make it almost tracker-like in nature.
I think my least favorite object, if we're doing least favorite object, it might be what's it called? It's called like it's a UI object, and it looks like Max within Max. It's called like it's an alternative to matrix control, right? It's called what is it freaking called?
Oh, I know the one.
Crosspatch. This is the one. Like Crosspatch might be my least favorite object. I just think it's a little bit cursed. Especially
Why is it cursed?
I mean, just look at it. If you need me to tell you, then,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know,
I don't like the big margins on either
I feel bad.
side.
Somebody worked on this object for sure, and
Yeah.
I respect that we can have differences. I'm sure someone loves it. I'm sure this is someone's favorite
Yeah,
object, but
yeah.
for me, it doesn't work.
I mean, David did a lot of work on this. But yeah, it I mean, I think it's a cool interface to Matrix Tilde.
Yeah,
Um
I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
it opens up it demystifies Matrix Tilde a lot. And I do see it getting utilized in a lot of live performance patches here and there. I wouldn't say I love the interface, but I do use it. No one worked on it. It just happened one day. Yeah, there's stuff like that in Max actually. It
We
just
checked the repo, and there was a commit, and the commit message was empty. The author was empty. Nobody knows how it got in there.
the rest is history. There's definitely some stuff from the early 2000s that no one actually knows who or can't recall. Um,
From the eras before source control, when people were just emailing code back and forth.
Vertical multi-threaded gone wild. Whoa, what is this? This looks cool. Zach, is this a device of yours? Yeah, I like that. Nice. Yeah, send a link. I wanna see it. Please send a link. Yeah, Modestly is great. The person I saw use it really good, and we had them on last year. Josh Eustace used it vertically in his Guilt Max for Live device that he uses with Second Woman, and he uses it vertically quite nice. Matrix mixes should be knobby, not weary. Not sure about that. Nice, Sam. Thank you so much for taking the time this afternoon to come and hang out with us here. Folks, we're going to
My
wrap it
pleasure.
up.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for hanging. The docs are incredible, folks. It's really, it's a weird thing to call a feature, but like they did get such a vast improvement over the past versions of Max. It just really opens it up for accessibility, getting the knowledge you need, getting unstuck, and that in combination with the new improvements in the patcher as well, just open up a whole new possibilities for learning new things, finding new things, but also getting unstuck and expanding your own Max world. Sam for CEO. Yeah, Sam would be a good cycling CEO, I reckon.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Don't tell David, but I think that's a good
I
idea.
think he already knows you want to be CEO.
Why? Because oh, never
I
mind.
think he might have told him one time.
I did tell him one time.
Oh, it's too funny. It's too funny. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to be the what else is there? CTO, CFO, what's C
CFO. You don't want to be CFO. I mean,
do we
CFO.
have
You want to run the finances?
do we have a CFO?
We did.
I want to be the chief custodial officer. I want to be in
I
charge
actually
of
don't
all.
think we have a CFO anymore, but wow, we're getting into company. See,
There we go.
Josh's Sam for
Yeah, see,
CBGB.
Alex gets it. Chief janitorial officer. That's what I want. I want to choose all the cleaning products.
Oh, S is like, let's put it to a vote.
And
I mean, that would be pretty.
bring
that-
we're gonna start composting and separating brown glass from clear glass. As
Oh,
CJO, I will not rest until et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
yeah. No unnecessary waste.
Yeah.
I'm all
You cut up your six-pack rings, but think of the seagulls and the turtles.
and the dolphins and anything else that can get his neck in a 6-pack ring.
Exactly. And I mean, you never know. You know what I mean? You don't want to go to the beach, take a big wave, and wake up with a six-pack ring around your neck. Nobody wants that.
A six-pack ring in your nostril.
It could happen. You know what I mean? It's not what you want.
They're kind of obnoxious. It's like, why do we even need them? Like, it's it's like, I mean,
They should make them out of that same stuff they make packing peanuts out of, so you can eat it. Um, like corn-based
yeah.
six-pack rings, and then it could be like a snack that comes with your. What if it was onion flavored? What if you got like a six-pack of beer? You
Oh,
cut up the
yes.
six-pack into six delicious onion rings.
So,
Just
and
think
of
about it.
course, by the time you get to the sixth beer in your six-pack, you're gonna be like, well, I'll eat anything. So
I mean,
let's have this French onion tasting six-pack ring made from rice.
I'm just saying that, the environment, it's not hard. We could solve it one, one idea at a time.
It's things I just said. Why do we even need turtles?
Well, that's a great question, actually.
No,
I think the answer is
I didn't say why do we need turtles, but that's kind of funny to think about. Um,
comedy because they're awesome because turtles are
Turtles
great.
are incredible. I always liked turtles, and then of course, in my childhood or late childhood, yeah, the Ninja Turtles came around, and I was like, oh my god, turtles are badass. Um, Take a little bit of toxic nuclear waste, and you've got yourself some ninjas.
I was a Ninja Turtle for Halloween one year. I don't remember which one, but I was a
Oh,
Ninja Turtle.
we need to see pictures.
I
You,
know I wasn't Leonardo, and this is a bit of a self-report, self-own, self-something, an own goal. I was like, I know I'm not cool enough to be Leonardo, so I'll be one of the. I don't want to get called out. You know what I mean?
for real?
Even like 8-year-old me was like, I'm not Leonardo. You know what I mean? So
Wow, you like downgraded yourself to like Raphael or
I just knew it. It
Michelangelo
wasn't.
or
It wasn't my personality. I feel like Leonardo's not going to any noise shows. You know what I mean? Like Leonardo is going to like Madison Square Garden to see the Red Hot Chili Peppers. He's not going to, the underground noise venue
right,
with
right, right, right.
Donatello, Michelangelo there at
The
the
noise shows for
music show.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, the Ninja Turtles. Yeah, we
Yeah.
need some. Uh, all I know is Raphael's cool but rude, and Michelangelo is a party dude.
Yeah. I mean, we all know that.
Yeah, yeah. Nice. Yeah, I mean, it's so funny how much of that stuff just impacted our childhood. Ghostbusters, yeah, I mean, that was pretty classic. So was Back to the Future. Back to the Future was essential for me in terms of starting to question reality and time. Brought on an existential crisis at age.
Really?
At
I
age.
learned I
No,
learned I learned where Libya was because of that movie.
it was pretty good. The whole hoverboard thing was just like, I can't wait for that.
Yeah, it's a pretty iconic movie for sure. Um,
And the DeLorean,
yeah,
the infamous DeLorean.
yeah.
One of the only other stainless steel, purely stainless steel made cars, and I'm not going to name the other one.
Someone out there, it kind of feels like in my head, it kind of blows my mind that what's his name? Like if I found out that um oh my God, I can't think of his name. But anyway, point is that like feel like DeLorean feels like the car. No, not David Z. DeLorean feels like the car to trick out and make into like a full, computer music setup.
Ah,
Like
yeah.
you open up the
Yeah.
car and there's like a modular synthesis rack in the back. You've got your synths in
There's an
there,
Amiga running like a tracker.
100%.
Yeah.
You've got your LCDJ running. That's the one.
So there was a guy that had one in Pasadena, and I saw it a couple of times. This is probably 10 years ago or more now, and it was really nice. Like it was straight off the showroom. Like it looked so good. Um, and you just can't not see that car and instantly think about Back to the Future. And yeah. Nice. All right, folks. Well, this has been real. Thank you, Sam. I really appreciate it. It's always fun to hang out. We'll get Sam back for some patching. We're probably going to do a couple more Max 9 focused, possibly Max 9 focused office hours just to round it out. All of these make it to the YouTube afterwards, so you can also review them for insights or to find out more about the Ninja Turtles. But we are looking possibly to switch this up in the next month or so with some different types of activities, which I'm sure you'll all be excited about. I'll reveal more on that later. Until then, keep your eye out for the next office hours. Thanks, folks.
Tom. Big pleasure. Good to hang.
Sam, stick around a second. All right, folks. See ya.
Bye, all.